is a real podcast, fellas. This ain't no EWA shit.
No, not whatsoever.
Watch me bumble my way through this one too. It's part of my charm. I don't know.
It is. I think it
is
is part of your charm.
It's part of the brand. I don't know how they haven't realized this after 3 years. You know.
It's part of the Dylan charm.
Yeah. It's working.
I have a friend, like Lori's best friend, has been listening to the watch-alongs without actually watching the show, and she says they're very entertaining even without knowing what's going on.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's nice. Well, that's what we try to do, you know.
We aim to please. Hey everybody, welcome to the Battle of the Brands. This is episode, once again, didn't bother to remember the number, but it's Survivor Series.
I think it's 7.
7 sounds right.
Yeah.
7 sounds right. Like Dustin Rhodes' failed WCW gimmick. It's episode 7.
That's my surprise. It's Survivor Series.
Yeah, it's gonna be us dressed up like 7 watching some child through his bedroom window like a creep.
That's what I do. That's what I would do when we're not doing the podcast.
Anyway, yes, welcome to Battle of the Brands. I am Corey. With me is Dylan, and this time we have a special guest. And our special guest is our friend John from such podcasts as the Unnamed Watch Along Show, as well as Wrestling Doesn't Make Sense, which I kind of think is the cornerstone of the Dylan Podcast Network. Am I wrong in thinking that?
That makes sense.
I have a network now.
Yeah.
You kind of do. You have like 4 shows, Dylan.
Yeah, I do. Wrestling Doesn't Make Sense is the one I put a lot of as a channel because there's 3 shows on it. That's as a whole, I put a lot more effort into that. But yeah, we do like episodes of Wrestling Doesn't Make Sense every week. Well, let's do it if you haven't already. It's very good. The last one was about The Undertaker. We talked about, Corey, we'll very briefly talk about this because at some point we're going to do a Wrestling Doesn't Make Sense. That's about theme music.
Yes.
We haven't done it yet, but we're definitely going to. So that's a spoiler. We definitely will sometime. So we were talking about The Undertaker. Corey, what's your favorite Undertaker theme music?
Oh, dear. When it comes to The Undertaker, I don't have the same, referential, love of The Undertaker. I would probably say I was really partial to the Dead Man Incorporated music he used when he turned heel as a Biker Taker. I liked that one really well enough. I mean, also the Ministry with the weird him speaking Latin was pretty cool too.
Was that the one we picked?
Yeah, those are both the ones that I mentioned, I'm pretty sure.
Hey.
Yeah, I went with that Ministry one, and then John mentioned both those. And nobody picked Limp Bizkit.
Oh, that's you know what though, they are probably a month from getting into an ironic, man, wasn't Limp Bizkit better than we gave it credit for by a bunch of Generation Z people who had just been born?
Well, let me tell you this. I'm going to tell you this. I'm a controversial opinion right now. I think Limp Bizkit as a band, very talented. Like as musicians, the people behind Limp Bizkit, they know how to work their stuff. The problem with Limp Bizkit is Fred Durst. They didn't have Fred Durst. They had any other fucker as their front guy. Limp Bizkit, and also if they had a better name, I think. But if they didn't have Fred Durst, if they had any other fucking guy, that band would be 10 times better.
I mean, there's definitely some skill there.
Anyway.
Have you ever, while we're on the topic of Limp Bizkit, have you ever heard of Big Dumb Face?
No.
Oh, yeah, that's
Wes Borland's.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, when he left, he started Big Dumb Face. Dylan, look up a song called Duke Lion. When you get a chance, I think you'll enjoy it.
In a legit way or in a
I think in a legit way.
What's it called? Duke Lion?
Yeah, it's by Big Dumb Face and it's called Duke Lion.
Okay. I'll look it up after this.
Yeah.
I'll put it into the show at some point.
Can I tell you that we did a podcast very recently where you did one of my favorite things, which was we reference, oh, you should put that in there, and you'll go, I'll just put it in somewhere randomly, and then you do.
Yeah.
The Shelton Benjamin Ain't No Stopping Me Now. That absolutely killed me.
Yeah.
Absolutely killed me. Loved it. That and the this is like a year or two ago, but you did something like somebody was talking about the song Lynchpin by Fear Factory, and you're like, I'll just throw it in there somewhere, and then you just did like mid-sentence. I love it.
You gotta keep people on their toes. That's the trick, man. Never give them what they expect, you know?
No, never give them what they want either, I've learned.
Oh God, no. Never. Because they don't know what they want, so you give it to them, and then that turns out that's what they wanted. They just didn't know about it. Anyway, Survivor Series, right?
Yeah, so Survivor Series. So the name of the game in this particular show is that Dylan and I months ago drafted our own Raw and SmackDown rosters.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that we think we could potentially book a more entertaining WWE than WWE. So I'm in charge of the Raw brand. Dylan is in charge of the SmackDown brand.
The spooky SmackDown brand.
Spooky SmackDown.
SmackDown.
Smacky Spookdown. And so yeah, so for the last few months we've just been kind of competing head to head to see who can put on the more entertaining show. I don't know, did we put up a poll last time?
I forgot.
Yeah. That's fair.
I'm not good at this.
That's okay. Start our own podcast. Wait, I'm in this one already. God damn it.
I mean, you know, we got a lot on our plates.
Yeah.
Busy people. We do the best we can.
We do. But anyway, yeah, so this is one of our big four pay-per-views in the WWE, which are, you know, as a reminder, SummerSlam, Survivor Series, Royal Rumble, and WrestleMania. And so the whole gimmick behind Survivor Series is that it's battle for brand supremacy, where, you know, we're expected to care that Raw and SmackDown compete against each other, despite the fact that multiple members of the rosters just hop back and forth between shows anyway. We decided that it would be interesting if instead of doing like our own Survivor Series matches with, you know, guys on our shows against each other, if we did the brand supremacy. So in order to keep it fair as to determine who the winner would be, we've asked John to help us out this time and kind of listen to how we book up to Survivor Series, what our individual matches for Survivor Series are, and what our teams are. And based off of everything that John hears, he will decide who will win the Survivor Series matches. And if he is so inclined to do so, who are the surviving members of the Survivor Series teams?
Mm-hmm.
So as a quick reminder, I want to go over who the current Raw champions are. Dylan, if you want to do the current SmackDown champions, that's cool too.
Okay, do you want me to do mine now?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, Adam Cole is the heavyweight champion, or whatever they call it, the Universal Champion.
Yeah.
I'll probably rename it to like Spooky LaRue Championship or something. Because that's what I do, but it's Adam Cole at the moment. Wait a minute until I look through my notes. I wrote notes, can you believe that? Never fucking do this. And now I can't find my notes, that's why I don't write them. Shinsuke Nakamura is the Intercontinental Champion. Shayna Baszler is my Women's Champion. And the Tag Team Champions are DIY, Johnny Gargano, and Tommaso Ciampa.
Okay, and on the Raw brand, the Tag Team Champions are a duo who are referred to as the Great Awakening, which is Buddy Murphy and Seth Rollins, because I found out they didn't have a tag team name, and I thought that was ridiculous. The women's champion is Miss Bliss. I cannot say her first name because I live in a home with a certain Amazon product that'll turn on and start yelling at me if I say it. Mm-hmm. The United States champion is Mike Bennett, and the World Heavyweight champion is Chris Jericho. So yeah, Dylan, if you would like, do you want me to go first, as often our tradition is?
I mean, I feel like you always go first, so that's fine. Although I also feel like mine is going to be significantly shorter than yours.
Yeah, I started off with 20 pages. I managed to whittle it down to about 6.5.
Okay, I wrote 4 pages. I wrote like 1 page per match, so...
Yeah, that's another big difference in the show layout is I write out like the entire show for each week. And Dylan focuses on the matches, which honestly I think Dylan's way may be a lot easier, and I may have to steal that in the future.
He kind of copyrighted it, so...
Oh, son of a bitch.
If you want to use it, you have to spend big bucks, my friend.
All right. So, John, do you have anything that you would like to say before we get started?
No, well, just I did listen to the last episode this morning, so like a lot of the previous storylines are kind of fresh in my head. So yeah, I'm ready to dive straight in and see what the follow-up to a lot of those are.
Cool. All right, so week 1, Raw starts with Eric Bischoff coming out and announcing to the live crowd that it is November and now it's time for Survivor Series. Now, normally Survivor Series matches for brand pride. It's a time when the superstars of Raw and SmackDown put aside their differences and unite as a force to beat the other brand to show who truly is the A show. Eric doesn't believe that's good enough, though. No, he doesn't just want to beat the SmackDown brand. He wants to destroy the land of vanilla spot monkeys and spooky freak shows. So he isn't above adding a little extra incentive to the men and women who are chosen to represent the Raw brand. To sweeten the pot, any of the sole survivors of the winning team will get to call their shot for WrestleMania. If you happen to be one of the last men or women standing, whatever you want is yours at WrestleMania. If you want a world title shot, it's granted. If you want a special stipulation, no matter how out there and barbaric it is, it's yours. Bischoff ends this segment by telling the universe that he was going to start announcing team members tonight. Our first match is the Good Brothers of Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows, or Luke Gallows, versus Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch. This is a callback to a few months ago when these teams were engaged in a very intense rivalry for the tag belts. The World Heavyweight Champion Chris Jericho comes out with the Good Brothers. They are in a stable referred to as Just Business, but only comes out to the top of the entrance ramp. He lets Gallows and Anderson know that they can take it from here without his help. Surprisingly, this match is free of any major shenanigans from Gallows and Anderson. They pick up the win with the Magic Killer. And then Seth Rollins and Buddy Murphy show up at the top of the entrance ramp with the belts, applauding the Good Brothers. For a reminder, the Good Brothers lost those belts to the Great Awakening and Rollins and AJ Styles and Roman Reigns about a month ago. Backstage, the newly crowned women's champion, Miss Bliss, is standing back with her buddy and a sort of henchwoman, Ruby Riott. Bliss is asked what she thinks about the Survivor Series stipulation. If, for example, all 5 members of the Raw women's team wins, that means 4 of those people, if Bliss is on the team, get to call their shot for WrestleMania, and there's only 1 belt in the women's division. Bliss dismisses that implication. Quite frankly, in her opinion, the only 2 women needed to beat the SmackDown brand are herself and Ruby would never challenge her for the women's title. Ruby scoffs at that remark, and Ruby reminds Bliss that the only reason she ever agreed to work with her was due to how much she hates Naomi. With the revelation that the winning team gets to call their shot, Ruby thinks she's better off as a solo act now. Ruby winks at Bliss and walks off, leaving Bliss just furious. We go into the ring. We have Mercedes Martinez, who just recently joined the Horsewomen versus Mickie James. This is a fallout from Halloween Havoc. Martinez turned on Mickie to align herself with Flair and Lynch, who keep promising a 4th member of their group soon. The match goes nowhere, though, because Mickie James gets jumped during her entrance by all 3 of the Horsewomen, who beat her down until the ref throws the match out. We cut backstage to Miss Bliss running into Bischoff's office, demanding to be given the job of drafting the women's team. Bischoff just smiles at Bliss, and he lets her know that the 2 of them are cut from the very same cloth. If he were in her shoes, he'd pick the weakest lineup and throw the Survivor Series match to ensure that he didn't have to worry about defending the title. Sadly, though, he has shareholders to answer to, and there wasn't going to be anything like that from the Raw brand. Starting next week, the women would be competing in qualifying matches to determine the team. We're actually starting, I believe, this week. Bliss says that's fine, but she demands to be put on commentary for each match. Bischoff shoots her down again. He can't risk Bliss trying to sabotage his team. Instead, he lets Bliss know that her qualifier is going to be against her former friend Ruby Riott. Bliss is incensed, and she shouldn't have to qualify since she's the champ. And Eric reminds her for the 3rd time that he's the person in charge and not her. And Bliss leaves in a huff. We get back to the ring. It's Willow versus Randy Orton. Willow is the alter ego of Jeff Hardy, who seemingly broke after Randy Orton kicked him in the head with the punt that normally retires people. Instead, it seemed to knock loose a little something extra in Jeff Hardy. Willow's insane dive from the top of Hell in a Cell cost him and Orton both the chance at winning the world title at Halloween Havoc. So both men are banged up, but Willow's unusual offense is able to throw Randy Orton off his game. Jinder Mahal, who has associated himself with Randy Orton, comes out, kind of bandaged up from his match with Drew McIntyre and tries to interfere. Before he's able to attack, Heath Slater and McIntyre cut him off. Willow takes advantage of the distraction. He hit the twist of fate and the swanton for the win. We cut backstage with Mike Bennett. He's got the U.S. title in his hands. He's gloating about how he showed the world that all the fancy submission moves in the world don't matter if you're facing a cerebral opponent like himself. Now he is the single most important singles champion on both the Raw and SmackDown brand. Up next is a qualifier match, Nia Jax versus former women's champion Naomi. Naomi makes really quick work of Nia and takes the mic, and she apologizes to the world that she let them down at Halloween Havoc, but she's not giving up yet. She will get the women's belt back, and is going to start by being one of the survivors on the winning Survivor Series team. Bischoff comes out and announces that while the women's team had to qualify for their spots, he already knew the 5 men representing the Raw brand. Of course, the obvious first 3 were just business. Jericho and Anderson and Gallows come out with smiles on their faces. For months, these guys have run roughshod over Raw. Jericho takes the mic and starts gloating about all of his successes. So he asks Bischoff, who do you has in mind to join him? Orton and Mahal seem like they can play ball, but they're a little too unhinged. Well, how about those Los Ingobernables guys? Those guys seem like they have a lot of style. And Bischoff states that he regrets to inform Jericho that the only answer that can guarantee them a total victory at Survivor Series, were these 2 men. And then Roman Reigns and AJ Styles' music hits as the 2 men walk to the top of the entrance ramp. Jericho is furious with Bischoff, and Bischoff tells him the same thing he just told Bliss. His goal is winning, and he doesn't give a damn what it costs. Styles and Reigns walk down the entrance ramp, and Bischoff tries to negotiate a truce between the 5 of the men until at least Survivor Series. Things are a bit tense, but Jericho offers a hand to Reigns. He then immediately tries to sucker punch Roman when he accepts, but Styles catches his hand. Gallows and Anderson start to brawl with Styles and Reigns, and Jericho hightails it out. Bischoff is furious with Jericho for the chaos that he just caused, as 4 of his perfect 5-man team are brawling in the ring as Raw goes off the air. Week 2 show opens with Jericho walking out of Bischoff's office, and the sound of Eric chewing him out is heard before he shuts the door. He sneers as Gallows and Anderson join him. He goes off about how it's bullshit that Bischoff's pairing him with Styles and Reigns after they've waged war since the beginning of Bischoff's tenure. Anderson tells him to chill out and gives Jericho a beer. He reminds Jericho that tonight is their rematch against Rollins and Murphy for the tag belts, and soon they'll all have their belts back and they will all be the sole survivors. Jericho says sure, and then he'll be out there in their corner, of course. As Gallows and Anderson leave, though, Jericho throws the unopened beer can against the wall and screams in frustration. Next is a qualifying match, Miss Bliss versus Ruby Riott. The women's champion looks uneasy about getting in the ring against the backup that she's had in her corner since being traded from the Smackdown brand. Several times throughout the match, she tries pleading with Ruby to let bygones be bygones, but Ruby refuses every time. Ruby's in control most of this match, but Bliss accidentally knocks out the ref long enough to hit Ruby with the belt and get the win. After the match, Bliss just spits on Riott and leaves her. Backstage, Styles and Roman are asked about being paired up with Just Business. They talk about how beating SmackDown is more important than anything for them this month. After all, they want to show the world they're the best wrestlers in the world, and part of that means being on the best brand in the world. Los Ingobernables of Angel Garza and Andrade Cien Almas approached them, sizing them up and down and stating that they were smart to leave the tag ranks when they did, since Los Ingobernables were the future of the company. Styles and Reigns let them know they have no problem reuniting for one night to kick their ass. And Los Ingobernables tell them, tranquilo, and, they'll be happy to fight, but they'll do it next week. Up next is another qualifying match. It's Charlotte Flair versus Mickie James. These two had a short-lived partnership that transitioned to a long-term rivalry, it seems. Both understand the importance of that call-your-shot opportunity if they win the Survivor Series match, and they both want it. James is fighting valiantly, but Mercedes and Lynch are at ringside as distractions. Eventually, Flair is able to get the pin with a handful of tights after James and Lynch get into an argument at ringside. Up next is the Great Awakening, which is what Rollins and Murphy refer to themselves as. And they talk about how at the Raw brand, they're here to purify it and save it from corruption. They're modern-day saviors of professional wrestling. Tonight, they're going to save the souls of the Good Brothers. Rollins sees Kushida in the locker room and approaches him, telling Kushida that, hey, he saw what happened to him at Halloween Havoc, and that the corruption of the Raw brand was to blame for everything that happened to him. After all, Bischoff allowed Bennett to get involved with the U.S. title despite the months-long best-of-7 series Kushida had with Timothy Thatcher. Rollins and Murphy can save Kushida, but only if he wants them to. Kushida is offered a handshake, but he waves him off. Murphy acts like he wants to chase after Kushida, but Rollins tells him no, that they'll make him change his mind. Up next is Randy Orton and Jinder Mahal versus Heath Slater and Drew McIntyre. There's a lot of bad blood here. Mahal and McIntyre get caught up in a wild brawl on the outside, leaving Slater and Orton in the ring. Slater gets beaten down and keeps looking for a hot tag, but McIntyre's nowhere to be found. Eventually, McIntyre tries to get back onto the apron for the tag, but Jinder pulls him off the apron at the last second. Slater misses the tag, gets hit with the RKO for the win. Post-match, Heath is visibly frustrated with McIntyre and walks out on him. We cut backstage once again to Mike Bennett with the U.S. title. He's gloating even more about his big win at Halloween Havoc. He doesn't care that he wasn't chosen for the Survivor Series team because what matters more importantly to him is that he's a champion. He's had a long road to get here. He had to fight hard. He had to work hard. He had to beat all of these technical masters. He had to beat phenomenal competitors. And he also had to beat that loser drug addict, Jeff Hardy. The lights cut out. When they turn back on, the mysterious Willow is there inches from Bennett's face. With a high-pitched laugh, the lights cut back off, and when they come back, Bennett's still there, but his belt's missing, and he freaks out. Up next is Montez Ford versus Timothy Thatcher. It's speed versus technical skill. Thatcher's still beat up from his best of 7 series with Kushida, but makes Montez Ford work hard for that victory. Post-match, Ford offers a handshake to Thatcher, who reluctantly takes it, showing his respect despite his disappointment in the loss. Bliss is backstage with Charlotte Flair, and they're sharing a very tense conversation about how they need to work together at Survivor Series. Flair said she's willing to negotiate with Bliss if she wants to play ball to ensure that they are good team players. Bliss sighs and asks what she wants, and Flair said that if she wants to guarantee that they win at Survivor Series, that she needs to make sure the rest of the horsewomen qualify. If Bliss makes sure that happens, then they're all willing to pass up a shot at the women's belt for now. Bliss reluctantly accepts this. Up next is the main event. It is Seth Rollins and Buddy Murphy versus the Good Brothers. This match is a contrast of fast and flashy style of the Great Awakening and the brawler heavyweight style of the Good Brothers. With another ref bump, Gallows gets hit in the back of the head with a steel chair and driven into the ring step shoulder first. Rollins and Murphy corner Anderson, who's shouting out for Jericho to come out to help him, but Jericho never shows up. Anderson takes a concerto by the tag champs and is pinned. Post-match, Rollins and Murphy continue to beat down Gallows and Anderson, but Roman Reigns and AJ Styles makes the save and ends Raw, checking in on the two men that have been making their lives hell for the last few months. We open up hot with Roman Reigns and AJ Styles versus Los Ingobernables. This is a competitive match between two of Raw's elite and the future of tag team wrestling. Sensing the match wasn't going in their favor, Andrade and Garza intentionally get themselves disqualified by kicking Reigns and Styles below the belt in full view of the official. Los Ingobernables single out Styles. They wrap his leg in a chair. They're going to Pillmanize him, but the Good Brothers come out and make the save. Slowly, the four men, Reigns and Styles and Anderson and Gallows, share a very tense handshake before Anderson pulls in Styles for a hug to his old friend. Styles is not really sure what's going on, but Gallows and Anderson toss Reigns and Styles both a beer before leaving the two in the ring. We're cut backstage, and Mike Bennett has gathered a group of WWE security guards and are leading them through the rafters of the arena in search of Jeff Hardy, and more importantly, his U.S. title. Bennett is livid, and Maria is trying her best to calm him down. We cut back to the ring. It's Kushida versus Montez Ford. This is another strong match on the card, but ultimately Kushida falls short. Post-match, Kushida and Ford shake hands, but Rollins and Murphy rush the ring and beat down Ford. Rollins takes the mic and tells Kushida that his weakness is what cost him his match, and it was a weakness that the Great Awakening could help him with. They offer him salvation. Kushida, instead of taking Rollins' hand, punches him in the mouth, and then gets mugged by Murphy and Rollins. Timothy Thatcher comes out for the save and chases them off, though, before too much damage is done. Backstage again, it's the Good Brothers, and they're just drinking beer and having a good time. They get approached by Jericho, who loudly demands to know what the hell did they think they were doing helping Styles and Reigns. Anderson asks Jericho where the hell was he last week when they were getting mauled by Rollins and Murphy. Jericho makes up some excuse about trying to call his lawyers to overrule Bischoff, but the Good Brothers tell him to stuff it. As far as they're concerned, Jericho and Bischoff can go screw themselves. They're taking Survivor Series off. Up next is the Lucha House Party versus Slater and McIntyre. Slater and McIntyre are looking like they're on the same page again, but this time Randy Orton's music comes on and distracts McIntyre long enough for Slater to once again fail to make the tag, and the Lucha House Party pick up the victory. Post-match, Slater looks disappointed in McIntyre and walks out on him again. We cut back to Miss Bliss knocking on Bischoff's office door, and the Raw GM is freaking out. He had the perfect men's team lined up, but now Anderson and Gallows have gone AWOL. What the hell is he going to do now? Bliss tells him that maybe they should just add Becky Lynch and Mercedes Martinez to the Women's Survivor Series match. He'll take a load off his plate while he tries to find some replacement for the men. Bischoff smiles and says that's a great idea, and consider it done. The women's team is going to be Bliss, Naomi, Flair, Lynch, and Martinez. That should get the job done, right? Bliss, satisfied that she kept her end of the deal, leaves, and is immediately confronted by Naomi, who lets Bliss know that she's aware of what she's up to. Right now we have the horsewomen, Flair, Martinez, and Lynch, versus Riot, Mickie James, and Nia Jax. This match is all horsewomen whose underhanded shortcuts secure the victory. Post-match, Bliss applauds from the entrance ramp, and Flair takes the mic and calls out Naomi, letting her know that they want to have a little powwow next week as one big team before Survivor Series. We got backstage to check in again with Mike Bennett's search party, who have yet to find Hardy and his belt. Bennett says he's going to go to the ring to call him out, and we cut to commercial. When we come back from commercial, Bennett is demanding that Hardy show himself, but there isn't a reply. Bennett says, fine, I'll play along with your acid-inspired fantasy, and calls out Willow instead. The lights cut out, and when they come back on, Willow is there, and he's got the belt in his hands. Bennett demands he hand it over, and Willow just nods his head. The lights cut out again, and when they come back on, Bennett is holding the belt, and he's just ecstatic. Like, he didn't think it'd be that easy. What he doesn't realize, though, is that Willow is now standing behind him, and when Bennett turns, he gets hit with the twist of fate. We got backstage, and Eric Bischoff is racking his brain, trying to find out how he's going to find two people to fill in the spots Anderson and Gallows are leaving behind. So he announces he has two qualifiers. He's looking for the strongest competitors, so he's going to be Randy Orton versus Drew McIntyre and Mike Bennett versus Montez Ford as he closes out the show with a dire warning to Jericho. If he keeps meddling with Survivor Series, contract or no contract, he's stripping him of the world title, and he's firing his ass. Week 4, we're opening up with that women's team's powwow. The horsewomen and Bliss are in one corner. Naomi's in the other, is on her own on the opposite end. Flair takes the mic and tells Naomi that she understands what she's going through. For months, she had to deal with disappointment after disappointment on the Raw brand. Naomi had it all, and now she lost it all. But that's okay. They are, however, only 3 horsewomen, and they need a 4th. That spot is open for Naomi. Naomi ponders it for a moment and asks what the catch is. The deal is, horsewomen can't challenge Bliss for the belt if they're the survivors. Bliss looks really full of herself, and Naomi tells Flair, no deal, before she pushes past Flair and attacks Bliss. The horsewomen pull them apart and are furious that their Survivor Series chances are now hurt by their perceived lack of team unity. Up next is the first of the men's qualifiers, Orton versus McIntyre. This match is all Drew. The big Scotsman has been furious with Mahal and Orton for months now. Jinder comes out and tries to interfere, but he's held off by Heath Slater. McIntyre lines up Orton for the Claymore, but Heath pulls McIntyre's leg out from underneath him, tripping him up. Orton uses that momentum to hit the RKO as Drew falls down and puts himself on the Survivor Series team with the win. Seth Rollins and Buddy Murphy are backstage and they corner Kushida in the locker room. They express disappointment in Kushida for turning down their offer, and even more disappointment that Timothy Thatcher got involved. Thatcher, however, appears behind Rollins and locks him in a key lock, and Kushida does the same to Murphy before Murphy can react. Thatcher says that the two are predictable after he lets go, and that at Survivor Series, they've been given the go-ahead from Bischoff to challenge them for the tag belts. Rollins and Murphy nurse their wounds as the camera cuts back to the ring. Up next, we have Styles versus Andrade. Super competitive bout with Reigns and Garza watching over their partner's back, and Styles gets a good win with the Styles Clash to end it. Up next, we have Bennett versus Ford in the second qualifier. Ford has racked up some very big wins recently and has been in the main event several times over the last few months in title matches against Jericho. Bennett himself is declared the future of Raw in his mind. So this match goes back and forth between two young and hungry competitors, but begins to favor Bennett after he starts displaying some shady tactics. The lights cut out partway through the match, though, and when they cut back on, Bennett is looking everywhere for Willow, only to get rolled up by Ford for the win. We cut backstage to Heath Slater, who's now joined up with Mahal and Orton. He's tired of being a good friend who gets pushed aside for others, and he's tired of McIntyre being selfish. He's seen what Orton can do for Mahal, and now he wants some of that too. Mahal welcomes his friend to the winning side, and Orton just smiles. He always gets what he wants. He is always the last man standing at the end of the day, and just business is history. But this new team, his new legacy, is on the rise. At Survivor Series, he's taking out Smackdown on his own, and then Jericho has no one to save himself. Bliss is backstage furious that the horsewomen let Naomi put her hands on her and the belt. As she turns the corner, though, she comes face to face with her old friend Ruby Riott, who reminds Bliss about the belt shot she received to the back of the head that led to Bliss getting on the team. So she wishes Bliss good luck at Survivor Series, but lets her know that their business isn't finished yet. We cut back to the ring for our final segment. Eric Bischoff has the entire men's team all in the ring. It's AJ Styles, it's Roman Reigns, it's Chris Jericho, it's Montez Ford, and it's Randy Orton. Before, Jericho had 2 allies with him, and now he has none, all due to his own childish, insecure behavior. Bischoff says that while this isn't his ideal team, he thinks it's enough to beat SmackDown. He reminds everyone what's at stake. Anything they want at WrestleMania if there's a sole survivor for the winning team. Jericho nervously looks around as all 4 men line him up and down, and Raw goes off the air as he realizes just how much he screwed himself over this month. So that is the end of the Raw month programming. I have 2 matches lined up for Survivor Series in addition to my teams. So I have the Great Awakening versus the Time Shooters of Kushida and Timothy Thatcher. And I have Mike Bennett versus Willow for the U.S. title. My women's team is Charlotte, Becky Lynch, Mercedes Martinez, Miss Bliss, and Naomi. And my men's team is Chris Jericho, AJ Styles, Roman Reigns, Montez Ford, and Randy Orton. So I figured that, Dylan, you would do SmackDown, and then we could combine and do our pay-per-view with John.
Yes, that sounds good. I don't know, man, but I fucking love how you've got Randy Orton, big star, and he's taken Jinder Mahal and Heath Slater under his wing. I'm like, you're making it super easy for me, dude.
Nah, man, you have to have lackeys, my man.
Oh, they're lackeys, all right.
Yeah, I mean, think about the original Legacy, right? You know, who the fuck were Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase Jr.? Nobody. Yeah. They were just kids.
Okay. So my thing's probably not going to take as long. So here we go. I'm going to start with, well, you guys ready?
Yeah.
We want to hear all about spooky summer SmackDown Survivor Series. There's too many S's. All right, I'm gonna start with the women's Survivor Series. We got Shayna Baszler last month defended her championship, and Dakota Kai won a kind of de facto #1 contendership match as well. So Shayna Baszler assumes she will be defending her title against Dakota Kai on Survivor Series. So Billie Kay has been kind of buddying up with Shayna Baszler because, you know, you want to stay on her good side. So Shayna Baszler tells Billie Kay to figure out a women's Survivor Series team that will totally destroy the Raw Survivor Series team. That's fair enough. Billie Kay tells Shayna Baszler that the team would actually be the best if Shayna Baszler was on the team herself. Shayna agrees, but she says she's got to fight Dakota Kai unless something would happen to Dakota Kai that would stop that match from happening. Wink, wink. And Billie doesn't get it, so Baszler spells it out for her. She's like, just attack Dakota Kai so that I won't have to do the match. Billie Kay, she understands now, but she is a little, you know, she's a Weasley character, so she's like, I can't be bothered to do that. What I'll do is I'll hire somebody to do that for me. So she goes to Asuka and Asuka's group of elemental warriors, and she asks those guys to help out and take out Dakota Kai. They refuse because they have good morals and they don't trust Billie Kay. Well, why would you? So they have decided. Billie Kay also realizes that you know, their best chance for beating Team Raw would involve having Asuka on the team as well. So she reluctantly says, okay, if you're not going to help us beat up Dakota Kai, let's compromise. At least you can help us beat up Team Raw. So Asuka, you're on the team. What do you think? How should we assemble this team together? So Asuka thinks the tag team should be Asuka, Kairi Sane, Io Shirai, Ember Moon, and Carmella, because the other women on the roster, Shayna Baszler and Dakota Kai, will be in a women's match, and Billie Kay will assumably be in Shayna Baszler's corner. So that leaves the other women free to be the SmackDown Women's Survivor Series team. Asuka, Kairi Sane, Io Shirai, Ember Moon, Carmella. Shayna Baszler is angry about not being the captain of the team. It feels like Asuka is more of the team captain, and she's kind of assembled the whole team herself. She's not happy with Billie Kay for not taking out Dakota Kai, for trying to outsource that business to Asuka, for for revealing the plan live on television to everybody. All Dakota Kai has to do is watch the television program to realize that no, Shayna Baszler is after her. Shayna is very unhappy with this, and she tells Billie Kay to get her shit together, in so many words, to try and figure out a way that everybody can be happy. So the week before Survivor Series, the SmackDown before Survivor Series, which is like 2 days before Survivor Series, Billie Kay challenges Dakota Kai to a match. And Dakota Kai accepts. She's like, I ain't afraid of you. As soon as the match starts, Billie Kay just starts beating the hell out of Dakota Kai with a chair. She gets disqualified, but that's not important because now Billie Kay is just going to town. And it looks as if Dakota Kai is injured after this devastating chair attack 2 days before Survivor Series. So it looks like the match with Shayna Baszler is off, and Baszler is now free for Survivor Series. She demands to be put into the match as the leader because she's the champion. She's at the top of the pile. However, there is already 5 women selected for the women's Survivor Series match. So at some point on the pre-show for Survivor Series, Ember Moon is found backstage. She's found injured. She's been assaulted. She's been taken out. Coincidentally, that frees up a space on the women's team, which Shayna Baszler reluctantly accepts, and makes it very clear that she's now the leader, and Billie Kay is the team mascot. So now the SmackDown Women's Survivor Series team is Asuka, Kairi Sane, Io Shirai, Carmella, Shayna Baszler, and Billie Kay as the mascot. It's also announced that since Shayna Baszler's planned women's title defense for Survivor Series has been nixed, she will now be defending her championship the next week on SmackDown against a mystery opponent. Who knows who it could be? So that's the women's Survivor Series match. Let's go to the men's Survivor Series match. No, let's not. Let's go to the next one I have written down. I'm just going in order. So, well, you'll see why I got confused is because Adam Cole and the Undisputed Era come out and they make it clear that the 4 of them, are going to be the SmackDown Survivor Series team. Adam Cole, Roderick Strong, Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish. That's all you need, right? Yeah, it's supposed to be 5-on-5, but forget that because they're the Undisputed Era. They don't need anybody else, you know? Adam Cole's the Universal Champion or whatever the fuck. And Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish were former tag team champions. They're the best thing going for SmackDown. Obviously, they're going to be the Survivor Series team. They are interrupted by Jon Moxley and Luke Harper, who come out and say they got some business of their own to sort out. Now, they're not angling to be part of the Survivor Series team because they don't really work well as a team with other people. You know what I mean? They're just kind of there to destroy stuff and cause a bit of havoc. That's like, you know, they don't want to be fighting as part of Team SmackDown because they don't care about SmackDown. They just care about wrecking stuff. So they don't want to be part of Team SmackDown, and they don't want the Undisputed Era to be part of Team SmackDown either because they want to rip apart the Undisputed Era. So Moxley and Harper suggest them against the Undisputed Era at Survivor Series. The Undisputed Era are pretty annoyed about this because, you know, they got interrupted. They were supposed to be the glorious Survivor Series team, and these fucking clowns are coming out to interrupt them. But they're also pretty okay with it because there's 4 of them. There's only 2 of Mox and Harper. So, you know, they're definitely interested. They're like, are you sure? There's only 2 of you. There's 4 of us. Mox and Harper are undeterred. They want the match, and they won't stop till they get it. And if you've seen Jon Moxley and Luke Harper before in my booking, when it says that they won't stop, they mean that. They'll just keep chasing something till they want it, till they get it. So Moxley and Harper start to brawl with the Undisputed Era, and that closes whatever show that is. And then the next week, Undisputed Era, they're not deterred at all. They say, hey man, if you want a handicap match, that's fine. We'll take it, Moxley and Harper versus Undisputed Era. But there's one stipulation that the Undisputed Era want to put in. They want to make it a steel cage because if Harper and Moxley want this match so bad, sounds like they got some kind of shenanigans up their sleeve. They're both well known for brawling all around the arena. Undisputed Era are saying none of that. We're going to have it inside the steel cage. You two can't call for any backup. You can't run out to the outside and start brawling in the concession stand. None of that shit. It's going to happen inside the steel cage. The four of them versus Moxley and Harper. That's the end of that. Moxley and Harper accept the Undisputed Era and their challenge, but Undisputed Era make one final caveat because they're evil, despicable heels, and they say that Moxley and Harper can't touch the Undisputed Era until the Survivor Series because again they're trying to cover all the bases and figure we're not going to let them get one up over us because it's happened way too many times in the past. We're smarter than you. Let's see how eager you are to accept now that we've laid all these very specific stipulations out on the line. And once again, Moxley and Harper say, that's fine, let's do it. So the next week, we see those two guys. They're in a backstage segment. Luke Harper's just kind of standing around looking moody because that's what he's good at. Moxley's doing the promo because that's what he's good at. It's a good dynamic. So Moxley's cutting the promo. He says, the people don't get it. They don't understand what Moxley and Harper are up to. They're just here to cause trouble. They just want to hurt people. They just want to burn stuff. They want to destroy everything. They just, they didn't get into the business for wins and losses and championships and pats on the back and little clicks and all of this shit. They just like destroying stuff. They just like knocking down really pompous people. And who better than the Undisputed Era? To the truth be told, they'd rather be locked inside a cage themselves because that way there's nowhere for the little bitches Undisputed Era to run away and hide. And the last thing that Moxley brings up, which is very important, and that the Undisputed Era might want to think about, is that maybe it won't be a 4-on-2 match after all. I mean, at the moment, it seems like Moxley and Harper don't get along with anybody in the company. And that is true. What if Moxley and Harper knew people from a different company? So, at the moment, we have a cage match. Adam Cole, Roderick Strong, Kyle O'Reilly, and Bobby Fish against Luke Harper, Jon Moxley, and some question marks. So that'll be revealed at Survivor Series. So now that the Undisputed Era aren't in the men's Survivor Series match, we need to sort that shit out. So let's figure it out. Since the Undisputed Era aren't calling the shots, we're going to do some qualifying matches instead. There will be one tag team in the men's Survivor Series match and 3 singles guys. So there will be a little some qualifying matches to get there. We're going to have Cesaro versus Brian Kendrick. We're going to have Aleister Black versus Shinsuke Nakamura. We're going to have Kevin Owens versus Shelton Benjamin to determine who the 3 men are going to be. And then for the tag team, we're going to have a Fatal 4-Way match. The Revival, Daniel Bryan and Eric Rowan, The New Day, and DIY, the current tag team champions. We're going to fight in a Fatal 4-Way match to determine who the tag team is going to be for Survivor Series. So, in their match, Cesaro beats Brian Kendrick. And once again, Brian Kendrick is very upset about this. He is annoyed that Cesaro it just keeps beating him up. Like, that's not fair. Brian Kendrick deserves better than this, according to Brian Kendrick, former Intercontinental Champion. Doesn't deserve this kind of disrespect. Shinsuke Nakamura beats Aleister Black. He is also upset about this. He's been spending most of his months attacked by some kind of fiendish clown thing. Aleister Black would rather not have to waste his time. He wants to get back on track, and a loss to the Intercontinental Champion in a qualifying match for Survivor Series, that one hurts, so he's not happy about that. Kevin Owens beats Shelton Benjamin. Benjamin and Chad Gable had been teaming together after Bobby Roode, who was Chad Gable's former partner, went off to have a solo career. So now, after Shelton Benjamin has his qualifying match against Kevin Owens, Chad Gable is super pissed. He's like, why all my tag team partners keep running away to have solo careers? This isn't fair. This is ridiculous. So we have Cesaro, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Kevin Owens as 3 members of the Smackdown Survivor Series team. The Fatal 4-Way match, the tag team match, we have Daniel Bryan and Eric Rowan winning that match, with Daniel Bryan pinning Kofi Kingston. So at the moment, the men's Survivor Series team, Cesaro, Shinsuke Nakamura, Kevin Owens, Daniel Bryan, and Eric Rowan Kevin Owens isn't super pleased with being on a team with his old foe, Daniel Bryan, but Bryan assures him that him and Rowan are on the level. They want what's best for the team. They're not going to interfere with Kevin Owens at all. They just, Scout's honor, they want to beat Team Raw. So the Revival and DIY, as the two teams who weren't involved in the finish of the Fatal 4-Way match, they decide to have a little match themselves at Survivor Series. So we're going to have the titles on the line. We're going to have the Revival against DIY. So that is my Survivor Series. Yes, that's my Survivor Series. Do you want me to go over the matches again, or are we good?
John, what do you think?
No, I think I'm good. I think I've got everything written down that I need written down.
Okay.
Cool. So Dylan, since we both have 2 matches and then we have the Survivor Series, do you want to just kind of go back and forth? Like I do a match, you do a match, and then that, and then that, and then we remind John who the teams are, and he decides from there.
Okay.
All right, cool. All right, so my first match up is going to be for the Raw Tag Titles. It is Buddy Murphy and Seth Rollins versus the team of Timothy Thatcher and Kushida. Thatcher and Kushida know each other very well at this point. They have competed against each other in multiple different matches throughout the entire run of my Raw brand. So this match is a lot about speed and striking versus submission and technical wrestling. At first, the Great Awakening get very frustrated with Kushida and Thatcher because no matter what they try to do, it seems like Thatcher always grabs a limb and is forcing them into some sort of a submission. But eventually, what ends up happening is all of these injuries and strains and muscle pulls and weaknesses that Thatcher and Kushida had to give to one another in pursuit of the U.S. title, it keeps coming back to hurt them. So after some shady tactics, a thumb to the eye here and a sharp elbow to the side of the jaw there, Rollins and Murphy go back onto the offensive. Rollins ends up taking Thatcher out of the match almost entirely by putting him shoulder first into the ring steps, a shoulder injury that was aggravated from all of the various key locks and hoverboard locks and arm bars that he sustained while wrestling Kushida. While that's going on there, oh dear, sorry, lost my notes for a second. While that's after that happens for a bit, Rollins and Murphy just kind of pick Kushida apart and end up having to resort to some shady tactics by inadvertent ref bump here and end up clipping Kushida's knee out from underneath them and just beat him into the ground. So they pick up the victory and retain their titles, but they're not done with Kushida. Kushida turned down a chance of salvation. So if they can't take Kushida with them to heaven, they're going to drive him down into hell. So they continue the assault on Kushida after the bell rings, which results in the sound of machine guns going off into the arena. And this kind of punk music hits the speakers. And out for the save comes the debuting Motor City Machine Guns. Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, Kushida's oldest friends, run off Seth Rollins and Buddy Murphy and make their official Raw brand debuts. So that is my first of 2 matches.
Okay. Nice how you debuted your wild card tag team from a while back.
Yeah. Sitting on those guys for a while.
Right, because me and Corey know what our wild card tag teams are, and nobody else does, including John.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a surprise. Yes, I might debut my surprise team later on. We'll see about that. But before we get there, I'm going to tell you about the Revival versus DIY. Tag team championships are on the line. The Revival, of course, having spent most of the summer fighting with the New Day, including that amazing cage match that the Revival won by disqualification because of pancake interference. DIY, the most recent tag team champions, so they've got something to prove here. The Revival managed to sneak a win via their typical cheating, their heelish ways. They cheat to win, and they managed to steal it. but the referee catches the cheating, reverses the decision, restarts the match, and the DIY managed to pull out the win a couple of minutes later. So they're still the winners, but the Revival feel like they have some unfinished business there. That's that one.
Awesome. So my next of two matches for the United States title, it is Mike Bennett defending against Willow. Willow has been messing with Mike's mind recently in this last month, but this feud actually goes back a little bit further than that. Mike Bennett first really got his big victories over Jeff Hardy by pulling a lot of the same stuff he had implied earlier, bringing up Jeff's issues with controlled substances in the past, bringing up the fact that, he's this young up-and-comer that, needs to be the focus of the show, and Hardy is just an old-timer who's hogging the spotlight. However, even though they have that history, Bennett isn't really sure what to make of Willow. Willow is unorthodox. Willow is wild. You can't really get a good pin on him. So Bennett's struggling for a while because it seems like every time he thinks he has Willow down, Willow's able to, slip out and do something completely unexpected. Willow stays on the offensive, though, after, he puts together a good chain of strikes and sort of wild diving, flailing motions at Bennett. The lights cut out, though, and Willow's laugh blasts out through the PA. And when the lights cut back on, Willow's just kind of standing in the middle of the ring looking around, not really sure what to expect. And Bennett rolls him up in a schoolboy, catching him off guard for the victory. Bennett once again showing that he may not be the fastest or the strongest or the most technically minded, but he can be the smartest. And there he just outsmarted someone that was a little too unorthodox and a little too unpredictable to out-wrestle.
So we've got Undisputed Era versus Jon Moxley, Luke Harper, and some question marks. It's in a cage. Starts off, Undisputed Era versus Moxley and Harper at like a 2-on-4 handicap match. But Moxley and Harper, they're not at all deterred about this. They're two scrappy fellows. They don't mind having a handicap match. So they're, beating the hell out of people as much as they can. But still, the numbers game still kind of gets at them. Until there is the appearance of two masked, hooded individuals who have like bolt cutters, and they pop the door of the cage open, and they enter the match because they're part of the match. They are the tag team partners of Jon Moxley and Luke Harper. Who could it be? But it's my wild card team, the Briscoe brothers, who help beat the shit out of the Undisputed Era, and they win. Moxley, Harper, and the Briscoe brothers beat the Undisputed Era in a way that would suggest that the balance of power is changing in Smackdown.
I love that we, despite both drafting these picks months ago, we both managed to debut them on the same show.
It was like 2 or 3 months ago, and we were like, we'll get there eventually.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually, because we were just talking about like, oh man, actually that last draft we did, I don't really need tag teams at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Oh well. All right, so first up in the Survivor Series matches is Team Raw of Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, Mercedes Martinez, Ms. Bliss, and Naomi versus Team SmackDown, comprised of
Asuka, Kairi Sane, Io Shirai, Carmella, and Shayna Baszler are the SmackDown Women's Survivor Series team.
All right, John. So this one is up to you. You've listened to both of our booking up to this month. What team wins, and who are the remaining members of that team?
Well, I think I like the fact that you added in the Eric Bischoff's decision that the sole survivor can call their shot for WrestleMania. So I think with that in mind, I'm leaning towards the Raw team to win this match. And I think it's got to be Naomi who ends up as the sole survivor in this one as well. I'm guessing, Alexa Bliss is probably letting her ego get in the way of things, and that kind of cost some eliminations for the team as well. But on the flip side of that, you've got the SmackDown side as well, who would it's basically Shayna Baszler's bossing people around and really digging deep into the captain spot. But she's also made enemies out of both Dakota Kai and Ember Moon, which I figure it comes down to Shayna and Naomi, but then Dakota Kai and either Dakota Kai or Ember Moon can come in and kind of effectively help cost Shayna the match, so Naomi ends up the sole survivor.
Okay, I have one. I have one thing I would like to say in defense of Team SmackDown. If you're basing the winner of this match on the incentive that the Raw team get, both Raw teams get that. So do they both win?
Wow.
The Raw team and the SmackDown, or the Raw men's and the Raw women's team, both get advantages if they're the sole survivors. So that because that's a good idea, did both teams automatically win?
We'll see when we get to the men's Survivor Series match.
Oh man.
All right, so the Team Raw picks up the women's Survivor Series with Naomi being our sole survivor.
Mm-hmm.
Up next is the main event, which is the men's Survivor Series match. Team Raw is Chris Jericho, AJ Styles, Roman Reigns, Montez Ford, and Randy Orton. And Team SmackDown is
Cesaro, Shinsuke Nakamura, Kevin Owens, Daniel Bryan, and Eric Rowan.
Right. Okay. So for this one, I'm leaning in the opposite direction. So yeah, with pretty much everyone kind of eager to be the it's certainly Chris Jericho wants to be the sole survivor on his Survivor Series team so that no one else can be, and then end up getting like the shot at him at WrestleMania. He's like actively sabotaging his team and screwing things up to get his partners eliminated, but not without trying to obviously eliminate the other guys on the opposite team as well. So he's doing that whilst you've got the SmackDown team, which is a bit more unified, even though there's like tension between Owens and Daniel Bryan and everything. But they're working well together, and because Jericho's sort of this wild card, the SmackDown team essentially capitalize and pick up the Duke with, let's say Shinsuke, Kevin Owens, and Daniel Bryan as the survivors.
Okay.
I actually really like that decision because I think it makes perfect sense for Jericho, who realizes that if anyone wins, they basically get a title shot at him. So he's going to actively try not to win. So I really like that. That worked really well for me.
That works. Yeah. See, well, the good thing about that is you've kind of given like storyline angles so we can work off it for next month,
Yeah.
That's what I was hoping.
I dig it. Who do you think won Survivor Series overall?
I think the Raw side of things is probably edging it out just slightly for me, only because the tag titles match between Revival and DIY was a little bit thrown together.
Mm-hmm.
But I really enjoyed the build up to the tag team titles match on the Raw side of things, especially like the formation of the time shooters and how that was playing off like their 7-match best of 7 series and everything they'd been through. I really liked the build up to the US title match as well, and Willow's mind games and all that kind of thing. But then Mike Bennett having his own stab at some mind games and it paying off. So yeah, I mean, that's not to say that I really enjoyed the idea for the whole cage match idea as well, with the Undisputed Era and Moxley and Harper, and obviously the debut of the Briscoes in that match as well. And with the good guys winning there, it seems like it sets up a potential new challenger for Adam Cole there as well.
Yeah, there's some options,
Mm-hmm.
But then, Royal Rumble is going to be in 2 months.
January, yeah.
Yep.
So we're gonna have one pay-per-view next month where some things will happen, and then for the Royal Rumble, I imagine we'll do something similar to what we did today, in that we'll have John on, we'll have a men's Royal Rumble and a women's Royal Rumble. We give our roster list to John, and who has momentum going into each match, and he can pick the winners. And then we'll also pick like 1 or 2 undercard matches as well.
Yes, that's what I was thinking also.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
See, my only problem is traditional Royal Rumbles are like 30 people.
Yes.
Combined, I think we only have about 15 women. So I don't think we have a big enough roster for a women's Royal Rumble at the moment.
Well, again, like next month, you wanted to do a little, because that was my problem while I was coming up with this Survivor Series team, is that I realized I had 8 women, so I couldn't really have like 5
matches.
Yeah, I couldn't have 5 qualifying matches because I didn't have enough women.
I ran into that problem too, and that's when I kind of just worked in the Good Brothers bailing on Jericho and being like, Bliss is like, oh, we'll just let the other horsewomen on the team then, because I was like, how the fuck am I gonna have 2 more qualifying matches?
Yeah, that was the thing. Once I figured out that Shayna Baszler idea with the women's championship not happening, I thought made sense, because that showed it had a use for every woman on the roster. And then Shayna Baszler pulling the old bait and switch so that she would get onto the team anyway. But yeah, if we got a couple more ladies, and then like a handful of surprises as well, and then we'll be able to. That would be the whole Royal Rumble, no problem.
So do you want to do like a mystery draft where we just tell each other who is going to be on our teams? And like, well, I mean, we're going to just basically draft for us to get 30, we would need to draft how many?
Another 7 each probably, because I have 8.
Yeah. I have 8 as well, so that's like 16. So we would need to draft like basically double our roster. I don't know. We'll have to think about it, because I think like I want to do a women's Royal Rumble absolutely, but maybe the 30 is going to be a little unattainable.
Right. Well, even if we did like 25 and then had a couple of like surprise entrances,
So I guess we would treat the drafts as surprise entrance then. That's going to be really, like, we'll really need to talk this over, because I don't want to sit there and like, all right, John, here's 30 people, and then like we each read names.
No, I mean like you and me draft like another 2 or 3 women each, and then we have people like Trish Stratus or whatever, like
gotcha.
Like little guest surprises that aren't on the roster, have only come back for like this one appearance, because that's a really good way to fill out the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, it always is, right?
If we're down by 10 spaces, we're like, easy. We'll just get fucking all of the Attitude Era girls to come back.
All right.
It's Kelly.
Yeah, man.
Wow, Kelly again.
All right. Well, that's going to do us for Battle of the Brands. That was Survivor Series. We'll be returning next month with our December pay-per-views, which will begin Royal Rumble is in January, and that will be the road to WrestleMania. And after WrestleMania, who knows what the fuck we're doing?
I kind of want to keep going, but we'll see when we get there.
Yeah, absolutely. But yep, I'm Corey, and that's Dylan. And with us once again, we appreciate John taking the time out of his day to listen to 2 of us read through, a month's worth of shows to pick out their winners. But I think it brought along something a little different, a little special this time.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to sit in and listen to it all.
It was fun.
Yeah. We'll catch you guys later. Have a good one.
Okay, bye.
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 Bye.